stand to my feet now because Queen, do I need to stand up now? And there you go.
Hello, good afternoon.
Great afternoon to you too.
Thank you. Good to see you both.
Say top of the morning.
Top of the morning to you, the rest of the day to me. So we're here. One more example. We're here. One more episode of Chatting with the Clays. Y'all got me tied up here. We are certainly excited to have the opportunity to have this dialogue, talking about Christian living, life, leadership, all sorts of things that we just make this this space and this platform an opportunity for reflection and just literally talking through how we walk through this Christian life and so many other things happening. It's just such a wonderful space. I look forward to it each and every week. We're appreciative for those that are listening on iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Stitcher, in addition to those watching on Facebook Live and YouTube. So welcome to all. This week, we are on the heels of a phenomenal moment in the history of the Church of God in Christ, specifically the U.S.'s largest Pentecostal denomination, Christian denomination, as we just had elections for our presiding bishop and general board. And just quickly, in acknowledgement of that, we celebrate and congratulate Bishop J. Drew Sheard, who is our new elected presiding bishop, and our board members, first administrative assistant Bishop Macklin, and then second administrative assistant Bishop Wooten. And we're certainly excited not only for this election, but just this new opportunity to continue to move forward with leadership that we know will challenge us and inspire us and continue to lead this church. And again, we want to be absolutely relevant and be able to acknowledge, that wonderful news and the direction that's moving forward. But today, thematically, I have framed with this thought: God bless the small-minded. God bless the small-minded. Okay. God, GAWD. No, God bless the small-minded. And I tell you, I was thinking about this. I've been in a lot of reflection recently with so many transitions in our lives, and there's so many things that it's easy to really wrap your mind around once you've hit certain places and achieved certain things, and then you can make it all make sense, right? You can put the ends to the chapters of the book and say, these things in my past contributed to this, and these decisions resulted in this. That's so easy when you hit certain milestones, but when we're in it, it's really difficult for us to make sense of a lot of what we're going through. And we're in a day and age where we're so tempted, and you all have heard me say before, we're so tempted to put a book into these chapters really quickly. We want to jump on social media and say, I went through this and this is what God was teaching me. I went through that and made this decision, and I instantly found out it was a good decision or a bad decision, and that's just the temptation of the moment. But we know that this life is long, and there's a lot of curves and twists and turns, and some things we just learn over time, and it may be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80 years before we understand the fullness of certain things that we've gone through. So I'll sort of start here with a few questions. We're now in the end of March, still closing out this first quarter. Can you all believe we're closing out the first quarter? We got another month, or actually, I'm sorry, we're closing out the first quarter right now of 2021, and we're past all the New Year's resolutions and all the new directions and all of that. And this is, for me personally, a time that I just look at myself, my business affairs, my personal life affairs, me spiritually, my family, all of those things, and I try to assess and just say, well, where am I at right now? I got 3/4 of the year left. This is the end of the first quarter. How are we doing? And have I really put the work behind the lip service of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day? and how can I continue to make adjustments to achieve some of the things and the goals, that I have for myself. But I pose this question to you all now that we sort of framed, the first quarter in this period. Let's talk about being small-minded. I know in a lot of ways we're tempted to think about things on the big level, the master level. We're told things like dream big. We're told things and we recite and utter and advise other people to think big and to see the big picture. But I want to pivot and look at the small. So, first question to the two of you all, as human beings, and we know that you all live holistic lives. You're not just pastor and first lady. You don't just operate, in leading ministry. You all live lives like we do. You manage your home, your business affairs, you manage, family, personal things, friends, all of that. What is the importance of the small? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You see, I'm serving it up to you. I'm serving it up to you. Yeah. So just opening question, what's the importance of the small in your lives? Whatever way you want to go with that. What's the importance of the small things or the small categorically in your lives? What is the importance?
Well, I think the small really are the building blocks to the greater, to the big things in life. So when you say small, I think, like I said, knowing that our lives are really intentional and living them that way, every small step or every small block that you build is taking you toward the larger, um, or it's building us, toward the bigger things in life, in our lives. For instance, you start with education, that may be the small that's going to lead you to a great position later on, so it's the things that we discount. I maybe discount's not the right word really, but the things that we call small and say, this is something I'm just doing to get me to point X, you know. Um, I think the small is really important in our lives. And we should really look at how we even approach the small. Because again, the small is important for the large. When we see a house being built, the foundation, when it begins, it's small because it just goes into a hole and it's one brick at a time. However, whether the foundation is a basement or just built on a slab, but it's one brick at a time. So if every brick isn't laid carefully, by the time you get to the bigger or the roof, even before you get to the roof, if by the time you get the walls up, if that foundation is off, everything can come crumbling down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I hear you saying the small in many ways represents the important foundation and sort of the incremental steps leading to greater. Okay.
Indeed.
Okay. Dad, what's the importance of the small in your life?
The scripture came to mind as you was saying, and I was reflecting on that to build my foundation from your question. Despise not the day of small things. Don't look at the small thing as being not meaningful.
Yeah.
There is a lot of meaning to growth. Despise not the day of small thing. I think now this might be kind of humorous. When you don't appreciate how big you are until you can remember how small you were. And sometimes you can look back as small as you were and look out and look at as big as you are now. Now, let me flip that.
Okay.
And this is not a bad thing, and I hope I don't get in trouble with this. But how many women?
Now, when you preface anything like that,
Yes,
trouble's coming.
Trouble's coming. How many men did you say?
Trouble's coming.
How many women keep clothes that they were 2 or 3 sizes?
See,
and
trouble's coming.
Since they've gotten a little healthier,
big trouble's coming.
But they keep them clothes. Now with men, with us, and I was just looking at a picture of me being small, a smaller build than I am now. And I was looking at that and I said, man, I used to look like that. I can't do that. I used to look like that.
Hey, Mom, I'll help. Hey, Dad, do you have anything in your closet you can't fit?
Say it again now.
Do you have anything in your closet you can't fit?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So they just the women then, huh?
Yes. And I was getting to that point. I'm glad you asked me that question because I was about to get to that point. But it's a reminder, and I look at that, and it's a reminder of where that you once in your life was. And so that was interesting to me, you know. And
Absolutely.
I took that from a weight thing and a clothes thing, and then that can be even spiritual. We really, and to God be the glory, I thank God for every time that He has enlarged my ability to learn more of Him.
Yes, that's excellent. And let's take those things and build on that.
Excuse me.
Response to my
excuse me for a minute. Am I still in trouble? Okay.
Yep. You in there, Doc.
Okay.
You in there, Doc. Don't be calling me. I ain't coming over. I ain't getting on no plane. I ain't getting in the car, train, nothing. Not until I see the smoke clear. I'm gonna watch the clouds from here.
All right.
Y'all let me know. Matter of fact, Mama let me know when it's safe to come back. So, my first question, and again, today we are talking about God bless the small-minded. And the first question, what's the importance of the small in our lives? And Mom's response pointed to the foundation. And she also talked about the incremental building from the small to the great. Dad, in your response, you helped us dispel the notion of small and insignificance, right? Small does not necessarily mean insignificant, which you pointed out. And then you also, and I think this really opens an interesting door, talked about small as the frame of reference or comparison for the big. You know what's big in comparison to something that's small. It helps you gauge and measure the scale, or even embedded in what you were saying is it helps you measure growth. When you have the small as a comparison to the big, that's absolutely interesting and helpful. When I'm thinking about God bless the small-minded, I'm thinking about that first question, which is what is the importance of the small in our lives, and parsing through that and really kind of diving a little bit deeper. I thought about sort of my journey. And, you all know recently at the end of 2020, I accepted a role as vice president for a university in St. Louis. And, we've been, in this transition in that role, and also in reflection to go from, an entry level position to the top position available in my respective field. And of course, you have university presidents, but in the particular areas that I work in and focus in, I thought about the small days where I wasn't sure where I would be going, and what my ability would be to move up. But then I also thought about, the journey and how I didn't wait until later in life where I would be competing for a vice president role to try to do big things. I was always trying to do big things at the small level. and bringing it, back to faith. I got that training and that start in church. I learned what it meant to put excellence into everything you do from the two of you all. And the two of you deserve a great deal of credit for the foundation that I built on and where I began, because you're excellent people. Everything that you do in the small moments when you're not seen, when people aren't there to celebrate or praise or put a microscope, when there's not a cameraman or media present, you all put excellence into small. And that's part of my DNA. And I've always tried to put excellence into small. And the one thing I can say that is absolutely not only true, but absolutely fundamental to who I am is you don't see me putting any more effort into things now than I did on my first day. You don't see me trying harder to be excellent as a vice president than I did in my entry level job. I was making a fraction of what I made, when I wasn't paid overtime, when I wasn't, compensated for all of the extra stuff, if you will, that, some of us we call extra, but I think are just essential. And I learned that from church. I learned that from a small church where you may have to teach Sunday school and usher, and you may have to be a musician, and then you may have to be a mover and a maintenance person, where you are the pastor, but you're also mopping, where you are the first lady and you're also vacuuming and sterilizing and all sorts of things. I learned the greatest lessons at the small stage, so to speak, which makes me in this moment rethink the stage. I don't know that small stage is actually small stage, because whatever you are when you're small, that's what you are when you become big, right?
Correct.
If you take a tree and you chop that tree down and you grind it and you bust saw it, and then you grind it and you get a toothpick out of it, that toothpick is a tree. It's a part of the tree. What's in the toothpick is absolutely in the tree.
Right.
It's just that the toothpick's purpose, and you see me turning the corner, you see the toothpick's purpose is different than the purpose of the tree. You can't shove a tree in between your teeth, and tease out something that's wedged or stuck. But you can do that with a toothpick. So in a moment where you got something wedged in your teeth, if somebody presents you a tree, you're upset because it doesn't get the job done. But if somebody presents you with a toothpick, then you're relieved because you have the appropriate tool for the kind of thing that you're trying to solve. So rethinking small versus big. So now I shift into this question. And again, our topic today, or the framing of our conversation, is God bless the small minded. So let's talk about the small. Let's help the audience appreciate and understand and really dig into ourselves to reflect upon and take advantage of the small. When I think about small, I think about an opportunity for development. You can't develop at a big level. You can't. Your development takes place at the small level. So in this example, and I loft it to you, I can think about when I was in the entry level role in my profession, I had the opportunity to ask questions. I had the opportunity to go to a staff meeting and not set the agenda and not have all the research already done and the graphs and the charts and the presentations put together. I had the opportunity to walk into a staff meeting having not done all of the data analysis and to understand what the data is saying, because I was depending on the leader, my supervisor first, and then the leader of my department, and then the head of the division that my department was in. They were those that had the opportunity to do the presentations and the background research and give the direction and help us problem solve. I developed by watching someone else do that, because on day one, walking into that role, I didn't have that capacity, right? I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the foundation to do that. So when I wasn't at the air quote big level or the great level or the leadership role, I actually had time to learn. Smallness gave me a safe space to learn. Now, I don't get the opportunity to learn in that way now because when I walk into a meeting within my division, or a meeting within the departments in my division, or a meeting with my peers who are the other vice presidents at the university, I don't get the opportunity to sit back and wait for someone else to do the research and develop the agenda. I don't I don't have the opportunity to sit back and just learn. I have to be prepared before I go into any meeting to be able to not just participate in the meeting, but to lead and guide the thinking of that meeting, and to put this into strategic planning, and to set this in alignment with the objective, and have examples of how we're either going to respond to the problem or continue to further, the mission of what we're doing. I can't develop in that way at this level, but I could at the small level. And I thank God for the small level where I had the chance to develop. So, in thinking about this particular vein of the conversation, what are opportunities within the small in our lives that we should be more appreciative of, and we should take greater advantage of? And the first example I threw out there was, within the small stage of me professionally, I had the opportunity to learn strategy, and I had the opportunity to learn about setting vision and analyzing data and aligning, the work that we were doing with our particular goal. So small gave me an opportunity to develop. And I don't know that I always fully appreciated that. So what are some of the opportunities, and what are some of the other things that we can appreciate and take advantage of in the small stages in our lives?
Small, being small in a large room allows you to grow outside of that large room.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, when I look at small, I look at humble beginnings. And then when I look at small, I'm thinking on how God had blessed me, as small as being a person that was not known on the national level. I'll use it in the Church of God in Christ.
Yes, sir.
My mentor being the first assistant presiding bishop, Bishop Macklin, is the one that brought me into the international Sunday school department.
Mm-hmm.
And we were blessed to be one of the first appointed regional Sunday school superintendents in the international church.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And that was the first time that the Sunday school department had been regionalized. So we'll go down in history as being one of the first. I was so small and unknown. And when I would sit and look at, actually, with our presiding bishop, now Bishop Sheard, sat at the table when he was AIM chairman and did logistics and worked along with that group. And now when I look at now, I was so small and as an unknown. But when I looked around the room, I looked at what a person could be in learning and developing, and what you could bring to the international church.
Mm-hmm.
So being small and not knowing what to do kind of equates me with what's in the crumb is in the cake. Small crumbs. You can taste the small crumbs that's in the cake. So God, when you think as yourself as nothing or nobody, you can allow God to grow you, and not only grow you, but you can be introduced with things on a larger scale and level when you become small. So I'm looking at that, and yet I'm in the position now to where I'm still growing. I'm still learning, and just to be able to see the church on a bigger level, and some of the I would call them movers and shakers in our international church.
Yes, sir.
A small person in a big room.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Excellent. And again, to the audience, today we were talking about God bless the small minded. So, same question pivoted to you, Mom. What are some opportunities and things we can appreciate and take advantage of in the small in our lives? And
I
Dad
think
gave a good personal example. You're welcome to do the same.
the biggest, I think the biggest thing when you're at the small, you can make mistakes and it's not magnified or
Yeah,
it's
Good.
not seen.
Good.
You can explore your curiosities and know that even if you decide not to go with that, the whole world is not dependent upon you.
absolutely.
I think, and it gives you. I think we don't understand the freedoms we have being small until we
Yeah,
get
yeah,
big.
that's
Yeah.
Um,
absolutely, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Because
Good point.
you don't have so many things dependent upon you. You don't have so many things attached to you. So you're much freer at the smaller level than when you're at a larger level.
I
certainly.
like that.
Mhm.
And that
That's
goes hand in hand with what Dad was saying,
yeah.
because the more you grow in stature, the more you become a target, the more you become visible. So
Right.
when part of the freedom that you're talking about is the fact that there's not necessarily a target on your back, and you don't necessarily have all of the things that come along with the targeting and the recognition and the notoriety. That certainly is a freedom. The other thing that I hear both of you all sort of, or I should say, I hear embedded in your comments is the discipline. There's a discipline that is important to develop at the small level in order to increase.
Mhm.
And it's hard to, and I don't like to use the word impossible, so I'm just going to say hard. It's hard in my mind to develop discipline at the large level because the consequences are so great. If
Good
you are
point.
not disciplined financially, you will lose millions and billions, right? But if you're not disciplined with, a $150 check, as a part-time employee. I remember, I started working when I was 13, and I was working at Arby's, and as a part-time employee, yeah, you forgot that? I know that's
14.
so many years
I think it
ago.
was 14, wasn't it?
Was it 14? Okay.
14.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, that was my dad making me work on the house and in the basement, with no pay, terrible working conditions. I had to call OSHA and I had to call the U.S. Department of Labor because he had us just
Was
working
it
in the
was
worst
the
conditions. That was 13. I'm sorry, 14. Thank you for clarifying. You know, but
Child labor here.
yeah, there you go. That's right. That
oh,
child
okay.
labor law. Right.
Because they're listening. They're listening. No. So at 14 years old, with the kind of check I was getting, when I was working part-time, at a fast food restaurant, if I blew that check, it was a big deal for me then, but I'd rather learn financial discipline at that level than at the level I'm at now. And again, to the point that you're making, Mom, mistakes at the smaller level is something that's good to tease out and work out, and particularly connected to discipline. Learning discipline at the small stages. Even thinking about this broadcast, Deacon Bert, began, on one type of camera with one type of audio and with just one service and one particular approach. But now that we've expanded in just a calendar year, multiplying the ways that we are trying to push ministry, into the laps and the hands and the ears of those
Yes.
that are looking for it and needing
Yes.
it. And now, between Light Up and the weekly Bible studies and the Sunday morning worship service and the chatting with the Clays, and now all of the miking and all of the camera and the virtual backgrounds and all
Yeah.
this thing, the mistakes that we made at the small level weren't damaging to the brand or the reputation of the ministry because we made them at a small level. So
Right.
now that the reach has expanded, we have refined the discipline and the lessons we needed to learn. That way, when we're in front of a bigger, broader audience and the stakes are higher, so to speak, we've worked out the discipline pieces,
Right.
we've worked out some of those fundamental things. So, I appreciate you both speaking to that. Let me also pivot to this question. And again, today we are talking about God bless the small minded. Um, when we talk about small, sometimes there is a certain frustration that begins to mount when we feel like either we shouldn't be at a small level or that we've been at a small level too long. And I want to get your input as leaders to help us kind of walk through, what would you say to people who either feel that in the very first place they should not have to start at a small level? And then maybe, 1A, 1B to that question is to those that maybe feel like they have been stuck at the small level too long. What would you all say to encourage and help us expand our perspective on being at the small level, whether we're frustrated starting at the small level or being frustrated, presumably being at the small level too long?
I think that again, the thing that sticks out to me the most is the advantage of starting at a small level is you can work out the kinks, like you said. You have time to explore. You have time to make mistakes, and starting at a small level helps you to build the way you want things built or the way uh, you see it. You can build it. It helps you build it to your what do they call not aspects, but what do they call when you're building a building? You have certain
Specs.
Mm-hmm.
Or template specs.
Yeah, and even if it's again when you're talking about building the church, the Lord may speak to you and tell you to build this way. But when you have to build or come into something that's already built, you have to assimilate to what's already there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can make modifications, which again, structurally, if something's already built, making modifications can be very expensive.
Absolutely. Wow.
And it can be very expensive, and it could be very damaging at the same time. And then, the opposite could be. It may be at an advantage, but when you miss the small things, when you have to attack something greater, you can't go back and say, how did it get to this point? Because it was at that point when you got there. So, I think being, again, everybody wants to enjoy the blooming of their flowers.
Mm-hmm.
The seeds are always ugly. I haven't seen any seed that's like a beautiful seed, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody wants to enjoy the finished product, the end product. They want to sit back and look at it and just enjoy the beauty of it. But the work that it takes to get there, and like you say, even the example you gave about the tree and cutting it down and the wood and everything, the work that it takes to get there isn't pretty.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so instrumental in you going further or feeding the need of whatever that need is. So,
Absolutely.
working at the small level is so important because you gain so much from building. Now, feeling like you're at the small level too long is a good thing, because God is progression. In the beginning, in Genesis 1:1, he created something out of nothing. But each of the 7 days, he builds upon what was already created the day before. So we see God was progression from the beginning. So in God, we should yet have progress. I think it's in man to want to always progress. So frustration sets in when it looks like we're at the same place too long or that things are stagnated. So we should always feel like we're in the right place, or we have the right feeling by saying, okay, it's time to move. We just have to know when it's too fast and when it's too slow.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, that's an excellent point. Let me latch on to that, because feeling like you're stuck in a small place or at a small level too long, I agree with you, and I really appreciate how you said it. That's a good thing. But what you do with that feeling can be bad, right?
Right. Indeed.
You can try to force yourself into a larger space or into an elevation, and that is actually what can be detrimental versus the feeling, because that feeling may just be the thing that motivates you to that next level of preparation and greatness before the promotion. Because feeling frustrated, and we've all been there, and many of us continue to still be there. That feeling is fine, but when you act on that feeling without really the introspection that's important, because sometimes God allows you to be frustrated so you cling to him more, and that you seek out the truth. And that feeling of frustration can challenge you to really go within yourself and uncover the truth that maybe you weren't ready to uncover before. And it's like, because imagine that place that we've been. God, why is it taking so long? How come I can't get there? How come I just can't get past and over this obstacle? And that desperation brings you to a place where you're more open to the truth than you've ever been in your life. Frustration has a great way of being a vehicle to get you to that greatness. But feeling that you shouldn't either be in a small place to start, or that you've been there too long, feeling can be a good thing. But what you do with that feeling can be bad, because you can be very, very premature in trying to push yourself. And now, in you trying to help God, you've accelerated yourself toward destruction, as opposed to accelerated yourself toward, that righteous desire and that godly, motivated and inspired desire for growth. But Dad, go ahead and jump in there.
Wow.
Again, we're talking about
Man, y'all have
God
really
small-minded.
y'all laid this table out.
Yeah, please.
I am enjoying even the smells of all of the different, from the fragrances of the different food. My goodness. Listen. Everyone, no, let me say it like this. Every person or business, corporation that I've ever looked at and studied about always started small. And some of the CEOs of the company, if you go to the offices, they always have something there to remind them where I started from. And they'll go back and talk about, this is where I started from. It helps a person to don't never forget small beginnings or where you start from. However God elevates you and how God blesses you, remember that you were not always in the city. You started in your backyard or your bedroom.
Yeah.
You started there. So don't never forget the day of small things. And as you grow, I believe with everything in me to remember the small things. It keeps you so humble.
Yes.
And not only that, but it's a reminder constantly of where God has brought you from. One of the biggest mistakes is to forget the day of small things. Do you not know that if you don't have if you did not appreciate the smaller things of your life, you become wasteful as you grow older. And God is not wasteful.
Yes, sir.
God is
Yes,
not
sir.
wasteful at all.
Yes, sir.
And I think it's a good thing to constantly be reminded. When I look at how small I was, now, am I striving to get back to that build? No. I just want to be healthy, even where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that at one time when David said it, my God, today, he said, I was once a young man,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm old. But in my lifetime, I just watched God, and I never saw God forsaken. He is the person. So I think now that we are maybe in the city, remember that maybe you might have been a country boy or a country girl. I use myself. I started operating a vehicle. I learned how to operate a vehicle on a tractor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started driving on a tractor.
Mm-hmm.
And am I good? I'm trying to tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my! Listen here, I got to give you an offering or something.
Listen,
listen. I remember that John Deere tractor that I started driving on in the country,
mm-hmm.
and I think I'm a good driver. Yeah, you know. And so I never forget it.
Yes,
and
sir.
for leadership, and what I like about what first lady said or your mom said, and I took some notes here, and I was thinking even when you're small, I remember when you started walking,
Mm-hmm.
you told me he took his first steps.
Because you were at work.
And I was at work, and when I came home, I wanted to see you walk. So she had to prop you up and get you ready again and start you all over again.
I gotta make it sound like that.
You know, but
yeah,
but what was interesting is when you did fall, when you were small, you didn't have far to fall.
Yep. Yep.
When we get older, it'll hurt you now because you don't wear diapers anymore. I don't think you do.
Oh, there you go.
And so you have something that kind of puffy.
That's that sleight of hand. Whenever I think you go in a certain direction, that's that sleight of hand. You know what? Look, I'm going to my next question. You cooking me?
You have a longer way to fall.
No,
yes, sir.
Quentin didn't come out walking, but he came out talking.
Well, yeah.
Mom, now you're gonna get in on this? We got a national audience here.
Someone asked, you mean to tell me Quentin didn't come out walking?
Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna tell you, look,
tell you what.
To the point that she was making, this is why we're not doing chatting with the Clays until I'm 37 years old and already reached the VP level. Because if I was trying to climb up, this kind of defamation would halt my growth. Wouldn't nobody hire me or promote me. Y'all just got to share, brother. They're unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, you know what? But you know, one of the things I also appreciate, and Dad, you spoke about this to a level, and then I also think about the example that you and Mom lived in your lives. Now 40 years of ministry. 25 years pastoring?
25 years.
26 years.
Years. I just want to make, because I knew we got a transition. I knew there was a transition coming up. But the other thing about that's interesting, because again, today we are talking about God bless the small-minded. Between small and big, one of the differences is the accountability and the pressure. And that is something that Mom included in some of her earlier comments, and Dad, it's certainly embedded in yours. When you all moved Miracle Central from what was formerly identified as Rose Hill Church on 800 Broadway to where you are 18, what's the address on Sager?
1926.
1926. I knew it didn't come out right. 1920 Sager there, and you all started on 800 Broadway. Your facility now is several times bigger than where you all started. But now, when it comes to cleaning, it takes more time. It's a bigger building. There's more areas to maintain. You know, the kitchen is bigger, which means bigger messes, longer time to clean. You spend more on supplies. The acreage that you all are sitting on compared to the old church, we'd mow that old lawn and be in 20 minutes, you know, sipping lemonade. But now, you all have to take a couple riders. You said 4 hours, So the other difference between the small and the big becomes the pressure and the accountability. And that's something that I think people can take for granted, because we all can get ambitious and want great. And we all, can see and feel. And I think it's a good thing to know who you are and to
Yes.
know that where you are in your phases are only temporary. That's a healthy thing. But it's what you do with that feeling when you try to push yourself and you haven't exhausted the preparation and the lessons God is trying to get you to learn at those various stages. You can thrust yourself in a situation that's not only detrimental to you, but now you start to hurt other people, right? Now failures not only impact you, but it impacts other individuals, other families, other
Right.
households. Me being married with a child and a child on the way, if I'm in a tight bind, the whole house is in a tight bind. Versus the single version of me, if I was in a tight situation, it was just me. So I think also something that is hard to appreciate is the expensiveness and the range and the scope of the damage and everything that we have to be accountable for, because elevation and growth compounds, the accountability and the pressure and the weight. And I'll say this and I'll turn into another question as we talk about God bless the small minded. I was talking to, and it's funny that I'm at the point in my life where I can say younger professionals, because, I'm still very young, but, I was talking to some younger professionals and I was talking to some folks on various levels, and, and I gave them the revelation. And I said, to be honest, as much as I love my job and I love what I do, I probably truly only enjoyed 35% of it. I only really probably truly enjoyed 35% of it. And about 65% of it is not really enjoyable in what it actually is. I'm not excited and inspired to do the other things. But the difference for me is I understand the relationship between what I don't enjoy and how it's important for the bigger picture, right? And I understand how it's important to people specifically, right? I don't like doing these things, but I know how important it is for me to do these things for other people. And especially for you two as pastors and leaders and as parents and grandparents, you all understand that connection. And that's another difference, in the small, in the big. Um, I wanted to ask you all about what specifically we should be focusing on as we're going and navigating the small in our lives, moving to the big. And I know we're coming toward the end of this episode. One of the reasons why I kind of framed this conversation, or I didn't kind of, I framed this conversation, God bless the small minded, is small minded is almost a derogatory reference. When you call somebody small minded,
Indeed.
you're not complimenting them.
Right.
But I do see an opportunity for us to change our lens about the small. And that's where some of these questions came from today. The attention to the small only strengthens the execution in the big. So the final question I wanted to ask you all was, what should we be attentive to in the small? And you all can speak about this on the personal level. You can speak about this on the spiritual level and on the business level. What should we be attentive to? Now, it's a little different than a close question I asked earlier, but what should we be paying attention to specifically at the small stage? That way we get the most out of it.
Um, the things that we should be paying attention to at the small stage. Again, there are lessons that you learn at the small stage that set the stage forever.
Wow.
Forever. Even when that flower blooms, it sets the stage forever. And for instance, a seed pretty much can grow in any soil, soil. Whether it's now we're talking to a seed specific to that environment, So
Right.
whether it's sand, dirt, black dirt, or whatever. So depending upon the seed and where you're planting, it can grow almost in any soil. But it's how you continue to cultivate that seed, or how you continue to take care of it until it comes into full fruition.
Mhm.
That's what matters. So you make sure it has the health, the vitamins that it needs. You make
Mhm.
sure if it's a seed that should be planted in the sun, that it so it can get the right nutrients, or in the shade, or around water,
Right.
whatever the case may be, you have to make sure you nourish that seed so the end result is properly built, or it properly has grown properly.
Right.
And then the end result will be strong and healthy. Paying attention to detail at the small level will always put you in the right place. What is paying attention to detail at the small level? When I first got saved, they told me these are the things you do to have a successful life in Christ. You pray, you fast, you come to church out of need for yourself and not because people want you to. You fall in love with God or fall in love with Jesus. And I'm not naming these in any order in particular. But these were the small things that I learned on the small level. You do maintenance on your soul, and that maintenance on your soul, again, it's that prayer, it's that fasting, it's that Bible study, it's that personal time that you take to learn the voice of God. You learn the ways of God. You dig into the word. Those things that you don't understand, you ask your pastor, you ask your leaders, you do to get an understanding. You ask those to pray over you and pray for you. Don't lean to your own understanding. These were the things I got at the foundational level. Not knowing one day I'd be married to a pastor. Not knowing one day that I would have children and they'd be the church musicians. Not knowing one day that I would be a first lady. Not knowing one day that I would be the Young Women's Christian Council president over a whole jurisdiction. Not knowing one day that I was even going to be influential in the handbook for the national church for the Young Women's Christian Council. Not knowing one day I was even going to be selected as one of the 150 most influential women in the Church of God in Christ. Because you pay attention to the small detail, it helps you in the times that when you are big, if you will, that when things begin to get rocky, things begin to test who you are. Things when you have your days that aren't so sunshiny, that you can pull back because those foundational things have been cultivated properly. And you can go back to them, and those are the things that help sustain you.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. No, that's phenomenal. Dad, same question. We got 4 minutes here on the books. What are some of the things that we can pay attention to and focus on at the small level that we should to maximize what we're getting at the small levels in our lives?
Be teachable.
Yes, I was going to say that. That was one of the things I was going to say, and be teachable. Yeah, want to learn, be willing to learn, and then apply what you've learned. Yeah, sorry.
No, you good. I mean,
You stirring the pot. You just throw out one phrase and just sit back and fold
You're
it
one of the
on.
150 influential women in God in Christ. I'm gonna listen.
Okay.
No, that's right.
Take your pruning.
Yeah.
When you have to be pruned, you don't want any of your branches to be sapsuckers with no fruit.
Whoa.
So when you have to be pruned back, because that branch is there
Yes,
but there's
sir.
no leaves growing on it. It has to be pruned back. Take your pruning
Mm-hmm.
and don't doubt who God has made you.
Yes.
We can allow people to talk enough doubt or criticize us long enough or
Absolutely.
over a period of time that'll make you doubt God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
The Bible declares that Job's three friends, and I'm not going to take a text, not a Bible lesson, but because he was going through a season, he was going through his season of loss.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we stay with the Bible, from a loss, he gained. When you go through a season of loss, people can come with you with doubt, with dark counsel,
Mm-hmm.
and make you doubt who God has made you.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, the attacks doesn't come from without; it comes from within.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Even amongst your own family, amongst
Mm-hmm.
who you are. Don't doubt. Let me use this case in point, and I'll throw it back to you. Even one time when you was traveling, and you've always been a worker. My kids is always all of y'all workers. That work ethic is in you so strong. And you was traveling, and I don't know if you recall this or not. The weather was bad. There was a blizzard. The roads was terrible, horrible,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
I feared for you. Lack of sleep, but you was so adamant in I have to do my job. I volunteered to ride with you
Mm-hmm.
and help you drive because I had a fear. But then I think about it now, and I said, well, I've taught y'all and put it into y'all. So really, I should have had faith in the teaching that you received.
Mm-hmm.
I doubted the teaching that you received. You are a good um, um, operator, vehicle operator. But because of what I saw, what I heard, I doubted the teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But you let me know, even though we can have grown children, you let me know, Dad.
I got it. You taught me well. I got
That's it.
Yes. Yeah.
So that confidence, in other words, don't doubt the things that you have placed in others because
Absolutely.
you put them there so they can navigate on their own.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's powerful, and that's the kind of testimony and just life experience I think really makes these conversations valuable. I appreciate all that you all have shared. We spoke today across the theme of God bless the small-minded, and again, just turning on its head this notion of what small-minded is. I think we, in so many levels, have a grace and an opportunity that it's hard to see sometimes in the small levels. And as you all disclosed today and shared, ambition is good. The desire to have greater impact and increase is good, but there's also an accountability, there's a diligence, there's a discipline, there are lessons, fundamentally a foundation that has to be laid appropriately. There's a dependence on God and his guidance and the truths that he reveals in those moments of our frustration when we're truly available and open for growth. All of those things are absolutely critical. And then at the same time, for us to develop a humility and to understand what our impact is with growth as well. Not only impact in our ambitions, but impact on the lives and the other individuals and the many people who can be touched if God graces us to be elevated. We have to have the right spirit as leaders to be able to lead responsibly and with sensitivity. And we've seen this, especially within our political climate. We cannot lose the care and the love and the mercy that God has put in us and shows toward us, especially when we're in leadership opportunity and position to be able to impact others. We can't lose that. And those are things that if you don't get those lessons down at the small stage, then it can be extremely detrimental at the large stage. But again, we are really, really grateful for God's big plans in our lives and how he sees us different than we see ourselves. And I really encourage the audience. This is one I really, really enjoyed, to go back and listen to this one. God bless the small-minded. Small-minded, again, in this instance, isn't about lack of vision or ambition or the ability to scale, but it is being attentive to the things that God wants us to be attentive to as he's growing and shaping and molding and developing us. That's really, really critical, not only in our spiritual lives, but also in our personal lives and the business endeavors and the dreams that God has given to us. So thank you too for expounding upon this, sharing of your experience and your histories. And I look forward to just hearing some feedback. Audience, please reach out to us. Let us know how you feel and what you think about what we are sharing with you and directions you would like us to go into, whether you're listening on a podcast or Facebook or YouTube. Share your feedback with us. We really, really would enjoy and appreciate that engagement with you. But until next time, Mom, if you would please
Wait a minute,
sign.
I have something to say. I have something to say.
Yes, sir.
Share and like.
Whoa.
Get it, Dad. Get it. And leave a comment. Let us know
Leave a
that
comment so we know you're there.
And
ring the notification bell so you can be up to date and receive our content expeditiously. Beautiful to sign out, Dad. Beautiful. We will see you all next time on Chatting with the Clay. Excuse me. You got my breath away. We'll see you all next time on Chatting with the Clays. God bless.
my brothers and sisters, I pray that this was a blessing unto you. First Lady Clay, would you like to say anything?
Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell. Leave a comment. God bless.